You smiled 17 times today. You said no worries to someone who absolutely should have worried. You nodded through a meeting that could have been a sticky note. Then you got home, opened a cabinet door that didn't close right, and lost it. Full meltdown over a cabinet door. You knew it wasn't about the cabinet door. It's never about the cabinet door. It's about the 17 smiles, the swallowed frustrations, the gap between the person you perform in public and the person who shows up when nobody's watching. Most of us actually live inside that gap. So today we're going to close it by learning something quieter than suppression and more honest than pretending. How to act as if nothing bothers you in a way that actually starts to make it true. Nobody who's reactive thinks they're reactive. I certainly didn't. You think you're patient. You think you're the one holding it all together while everyone else creates the chaos. And you are holding it together. That's the problem. You hold it together when your boss says something that makes your jaw tighten. You hold it together when the barista gets your order wrong for the third time, and you say, "No, this is great, thank you." You hold it together when your friend cancels on you 20 minutes before you were supposed to meet, and you text back a thumbs up emoji like everything's fine. Except fine has a weight, and you're carrying all of it. All those times you held back, put on a nice face when it cost you something, chose to keep things smooth instead of saying what was real, none of that just vanishes. It just moves. To the cabinet door, or the slow driver, or the Wi-Fi that buffers for 3 seconds too long, or the way your partner loads the dishwasher, which is wrong, and you know it's wrong, and they know you know it's wrong, and somehow this has become the hill you're ready to go down on while standing in your own kitchen. The feeling is real. The anger is real. The frustration is absolutely real. It's just been misrouted. So what we're actually doing here is closing the gap between who you are in public and who you become when the cabinet door doesn't close right, making those two people a little more like each other. Now, I can almost guarantee that you're currently doing one of 4 things about this. All 4 of them are making it worse. First, venting. You call your friend, you unload, you describe in vivid detail exactly what happened and exactly why the other person was wrong. Feels great for about 11 minutes. Then you notice you're still angry. Maybe angrier. Because now you've rehearsed the story, polished it, given it a narrative arc. Every retelling is basically a reliving. Second, suppression. You shove it down, don't talk about it, tell yourself it doesn't matter. This works beautifully right up until it doesn't, which is usually at the cabinet door or at 11 p.m. when you can't sleep, or in the middle of an unrelated argument when suddenly you're bringing up something from 6 weeks ago. Third, rumination. You replay the moment. You compose the email you'll never send, then rewrite it, and the subject line gets progressively more devastating with each draft. You have an entire imaginary conversation where you say exactly the right thing at exactly the right time, and the other person is stunned into silence by your eloquence. This conversation has never happened. It will never happen. You've now spent 45 minutes on it and your heart rate is elevated. Fourth, the explosion. You finally react, and it's disproportionate, and the person on the receiving end looks at you like you've lost your mind. Now you feel worse about the explosion than you did about the original thing. So you've added guilt to the pile. Congratulations. If venting doesn't work, and suppressing doesn't work, and ruminating definitely doesn't work, what does? There is a difference between suppression and performance. They look similar from the outside. They feel completely different from the inside. Suppression says, I don't feel this. I refuse to feel this. This emotion does not exist. And the emotion, predictably, does not appreciate being told it doesn't exist. It goes underground. It comes back later, in a different form. The insomnia, the short temper, the cabinet door. Performance says something different. Performance says, I feel this, I see it, I acknowledge it completely, and I am choosing, right now, in this specific moment, to keep my hands on the wheel. The feeling is still there. You're just not letting it control what you do next. This has nothing in common with toxic positivity. You're not pretending the thing didn't happen. You're not gaslighting yourself into happiness. What you're doing is making a behavioral choice. The choice to keep this moment's emotion from dictating this moment's action. The feeling gets to exist. It just doesn't get to steer. Suppressing is fighting yourself. Performing calm is working with yourself. When you act calm before you feel calm, something strange happens. Your body starts to believe you. Most people assume it's a one-way street. Brain decides how to feel, body follows orders. That's only half the circuit. The other half runs in reverse, and almost nobody uses it on purpose. When your shoulders drop, your jaw unclenches, your breathing slows, your hands open, your nervous system reads those physical signals and starts recalibrating. It has no idea you did those things on purpose. It just reads the data and responds. Apparently the face is smiling. Body goes, okay, I guess we're doing this. There's a slight delay. You act calm, and then, a few seconds later, sometimes a few minutes, the feeling starts to arrive. Partially, gradually, noticeably. The performed calm becomes a little less performed. You just didn't know you were using a real neurological pathway. You thought you were faking it. You don't wait to feel calm before you act calm. You act calm, and then you start to feel it. There's a second layer. Your reaction is, in many situations, the fuel that the other person's behavior needs to continue. Think about the screaming boss. Everyone in the room is flinching, looking down, radiating discomfort. That discomfort is feedback. It tells the screamer that their behavior is producing an effect. Producing an effect is the entire point. Now imagine one person in that room who doesn't flinch, doesn't look down, just sits there, face neutral, breathing normally, present, but unmoved. That person hasn't said a word, and they've completely changed the dynamic. Because every screaming person in the history of human civilization has eventually stopped screaming. The people who seem to have it together feel just as much as you do. They just react less. Doing nothing is, in many situations, the single most powerful thing you can do. Want to level up your people skills? Join our community on YouTube or on my Patreon for exclusive scripts, early access, and connection with people who get the social struggle. Links below. Let's master human interaction together. So let's talk about the moment, the 2 seconds between the thing happening and your response leaving your mouth. That window is where it all happens. There's a technique called stop. I wish it were called something less like a motivational poster, but it works. The S means stop, literally pause, even for 1 second. That feeling of urgency is an illusion your nervous system is selling you. The T is take a breath. One real breath, not a dramatic yoga performance. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Nobody in the room will even notice. The O means observe. What's actually happening right now? Strip the narrative. Strip the implications. Just identify what's actually occurring. The boss said a thing. The email arrived. The friend canceled. That's the fact. Everything else is narrative. And the P means proceed, with intention instead of momentum. You're choosing your next move instead of being launched into it. The stop technique is the mental pause. Your body is usually ahead of your brain though, so let's catch it at the physical level. First, box breathing. 4 seconds in, hold for 4. 4 seconds out, hold for 4. That's 1 cycle. Do 3. I know this sounds like something printed on a hospital pamphlet, and I'm sorry about that, but it works. And you can do it in a meeting without anyone knowing. You just look like you're thinking, which is a good look. Second, progressive muscle release. Tense every muscle in your body for 5 seconds. Everything. Fists, arms, shoulders, abs, legs, even your face. Hold it. Then release all of it at once. The release after deliberate tension drops your baseline tension lower than it was before you started. Third, the 1 block walk. 1 block around your building, down the street, through the parking lot. Forget the process my feelings in nature expedition. The physical movement interrupts the rumination loop in a way that sitting still cannot. Your body changes location and your mind follows it there. These won't erase the problem. They create enough space between you and your reaction that you get to choose your response instead of being chosen by it. Some situations need more than a breathing exercise. They need you to change how you're thinking about what just happened. 2 tools. Each one works on a different layer. First, label the emotion. When you're flooded with a feeling and you put a specific word on it, not bad or upset, but frustrated or embarrassed or jealous, that act of naming it activates your prefrontal cortex. The moment that part comes online, the emotional intensity drops. Finding the right word shifts you from experiencing the emotion to observing it. Observation creates distance. Second, the empathy flip. The screaming boss? Probably terrified of their own boss. The person who ghosted you? Almost certainly a mess who doesn't know how to have an honest conversation. The colleague who stole your idea? Deeply insecure about their own contributions. you're reclassifying them. They go from being a threat to being a human. Humans are manageable. Now let's talk about where most of us spend our reactive energy. The modern workplace is basically a daily stress test designed by someone who has never experienced a human emotion. Scenario 1. Someone just presented your idea in a meeting. Your idea, with your specific framing and your specific examples. Your boss is nodding. The person who stole it is making eye contact with you while presenting it, which is a level of audacity that deserves its own category. You nod. You make a small, thoughtful face. You let the meeting continue. Later, strategically, not emotionally, you follow up. You send the original document with the timestamp. You mention the idea in a one-on-one with your boss, casually, as something you've been developing. You make sure the right people know without making a scene that turns you into the difficult person instead of the wronged person. Scenario 2. The passive-aggressive email. You read it. Your blood warms. You start drafting a reply that is technically professional but dripping with subtext. Delete it. Draft another one. Sharper. Delete that too. The version you actually send is 4 words shorter than the first draft and contains 0 sarcasm. That version wins, every time. People who react visibly to every micro-frustration at work are sending a signal. They can be managed through micro-frustrations. People who don't react send a different signal entirely, and that signal is worth more than any individual moment of satisfaction. Work is one thing. The harder arena is personal life. These are the people who can actually get to you because you chose to let them in. The family dinner. You know the one. The holiday table. The opinion you've heard 47 times. The passive-aggressive remark about your life choices from someone who hasn't updated their understanding of you since you were 19. There's no winning this argument. There has never been a Thanksgiving where someone changed their deeply held belief because of a compelling rebuttal between the turkey and the pie. The unbothered move is disengagement without drama. You nod. You take a bite of something. You change the subject with the subtlety of someone who has done this before. The argument didn't need you. You just stopped volunteering. The partner argument over nothing. You both know it's over nothing. The dishwasher, the thermostat, who forgot to buy milk. The content is irrelevant, but the tension is real. The unbothered exit strategy that actually works. Say, I need 10 minutes. Walk away. Not dramatically, not to make a point, just to build the space where a real conversation can happen instead of a bad one. I need 10 minutes is you deciding what kind of conversation happens next instead of letting it turn into a fight. Everything we've talked about so far has been reactive. The real advantage is proactive, building a baseline where the moments don't hit as hard in the first place. The morning buffer. 10 minutes at the start of your day where you are responding to nothing. The phone stays face down. You're just existing in the brief window before the world starts making requests of you. Most people hand these 10 minutes to their notifications. Take them back. The screen time sunset. The hour before you sleep is when you are most emotionally porous. Whatever you consume in that hour sets the emotional tone for the next morning. Protect it. The hobby dive. One thing per week where you lose track of time. Nothing productive, nothing optimized. Something absorbing. Last week I spent 2 hours fixing a shelf that didn't need fixing, and I felt better than I had all month. These habits don't prevent hard days. What they change is where you land when things go bad. Without them, a bad day drops you to the basement. With them, a bad day drops you to the ground floor. I want to address something directly. There is a line between acting unbothered as a strategic behavioral choice and using unbothered as a permanent mask to avoid ever feeling anything. Acting unbothered in the moment, in the meeting, at the family dinner, in the text back, that's a skill. If unbothered becomes your entire emotional vocabulary, though, if you find yourself unable to access genuine feeling even when you're safe, even when you're alone, that's avoidance. Some things should bother you. Grief should bother you. Genuine injustice should bother you. A relationship where you're being consistently disrespected should bother you enough to do something about it. And if the techniques here feel like they're nowhere near enough, if the breathing falls short, if the reframing feels hollow, that's information. Therapy exists for exactly this reason, and seeking it out is an extension of everything we've discussed. When you practice this long enough, something stops being performance and becomes something else entirely. I think of it as the nothing phase. You start with the tools, the stop technique, the box breathing, the empathy flip. You use them deliberately, consciously, with effort. You're overriding your default response and replacing it with a chosen one. Then, after weeks, sometimes months, and there's no shortcut here, something shifts. The gap starts to appear on its own. You're in traffic, someone cuts you off, and you notice something strange. You're not angry. The trigger fired and the old response quietly stayed home. Like a guest who used to always come to the party and then one day stopped showing up. Your brain, through sheer repetition, built a new pathway. The old one still exists. Might always exist. But the signal takes the new route first now. You did the reps. You built the road. So, the truth. You're not going to be unbothered tomorrow. Something small and stupid is going to happen, and it's going to land exactly the way it always has. The old pattern is going to show up like it owns the place. And that's fine. That's the starting point. The point was never to wake up tomorrow as a different person. Just this. The next time something lands, you pause for 1 second before you reply to the email, before you match someone's energy, before you say the thing that will cost 3 days to repair. And in that 1 second, you choose. Maybe perfectly, maybe badly. And that's the entire difference between being carried by your reactions and carrying them. The cabinet door is still going to stick. The world won't rearrange itself around your emotional preferences. You get to decide what you do when it doesn't. One moment at a time, one cabinet door at a time. Learn something new? Hit that like button, share it with others, tap subscribe, and stick around for more. Got thoughts? I'd love to hear them in the comments.